So, Fáilte Road arás a rééis Shoalia, a comrade. This is Fra Hughes, hero Fra Hughes, who has been through an ordeal and he's arrived home safely, thank goodness. So, Fra, thank you, because you're also holding the Iran flag for us. Tell us how you're feeling.
Well, the first comment I'm going to make is you called me a hero. The only heroes I see are the people that are involved in the axis of resistance across West Asia, the people who are resisting Zionist imperialist colonisation. We went to break the siege on Gaza. We're not the first flotilla to do that. There was a simultaneous land convoy that was coming through, I think it was Tunisia, Algeria and Libya, trying to reach the Rafah border crossing. We were initially intercepted and kidnapped 600 miles from the Gazan coastline. The Israelis are so frightened of the global Samud flotilla. They are so frightened of a global movement of ordinary citizens. We are filling the vacuum and the gap left by international governments that are complicit in genocide, that are complicit in the ongoing ethnic cleansing of both Gaza and the West Bank. I'll include the ethnic cleansing in southern Lebanon. I'll include the bombing of Iran, the destruction of Syria, Libya and Iraq, the balkanization of Yemen as part of weakening the Ummah, the Levant, of weakening sovereign states that may pose an existential threat to Israeli expansionism. They are my heroes. They are the people that I support. So they took 177 people off 22 boats. They put 34 of them in hospital, including one person who had 6 broken ribs, an inflamed diaphragm, and needed oxygen for over a week as part of their recuperation. They took those people and dumped them off in Crete. That proves that Crete and that proves that Greece are complicit in a genocide. It proves that NATO and the EU countries and the North American administration were fully aware of these abductions that were planned in advance that were going to take place in international waters in the Mediterranean Sea. It now implies that the Israeli border does not end 12 miles where it meets international waters. It ends in Barcelona, it ends in Italy, it ends in Athens. They think that the Mediterranean basin is now their naval area of operations. We were then targeted last Monday when they wanted to mop up the remaining 52 boats that were involved in the flotilla. Our boat, we saw the Israeli warship on the horizon. Within 7 minutes, they had a rib at the side of our boat. We had 6 people on board. We had a Norwegian student. We had a Jewish American doctor from New York. We had an ex-RAF pilot who was the captain of a humanitarian vessel. So what journey has he made in life, from bombing people in Oman, which he told me about, to trying to save people in Gaza. We had a native Maori who was choked nearly to unconsciousness when he reached Israel because of his indigenous tattoos and because of the racism of the Zionist state. He was targeted and very, very badly beaten. They approached our boat. They told the captain to stay where he was. They put dots on our heads. They told us if we moved, we would be shot. They then boarded the boats. They took off our shoes. I was left with a pair of jeans, a t-shirt, a life jacket. We were taken to what we thought was a warship, which turned out to be a prison ship. It's a warship that had been converted with containers that you would see shipping all the way around the world, 40 feet by 10 feet or 15 feet. We were lying on bare metal. There was razor wire above us, water cannons, armed guards. They fired bean bags at people, which is a form of like birdshot. Several people were injured. There were beatings. We were eventually, after 2 days, they took us off the prison ship and they put us on to Ashdod port. We were zip tied, then we were taken through immigration. As part of the immigration process, we were asked to sign a form that said that we had illegally entered Israel, even though we had been illegally captured in international waters. I told them that I would answer no questions. and I would sign no documents until I had spoken to a representative of the Irish Embassy. They brought us through. We were brought in to be strip searched. I went in behind some curtains. All the Israelis were masked. All you could see was the eyes, so you could never identify them. I was told to take up my top. I felt the menace within the room. I was convinced that as soon as I raised my hands, I would be assaulted. He took off my top, took off my jeans, did a strip search. Then he told me to open my mouth, and then he said, turn to the right. And I thought, this is when he's going to hit me. I felt the immediacy of the threat of physical violence right upon being taken illegally into this immigration centre. Subsequent to this, I've heard many people were beaten and sexually assaulted in the very same spot. I'm convinced that there was an organisational design to create an atmosphere where at any moment, at any time, anyone could be beaten, could be tortured, could be sexually assaulted or violated. People lived with that for the next 3 days. We were then handcuffed. We had leg shackles put on. We were taken to, after the immigration, we were taken to the prison. So they got everyone, our heads were bent down. We were in a crouched position. We had our hands tied behind, handcuffs behind our back. People were beaten, pushed to the ground, strip searched again. More people were assaulted. There are claims. When we finally got to Turkey, at Istanbul, we went to a medical centre to get witness testimony to what happened. There are now 15 reports of sexual assault, including men being tasered in their testicles deliberately as an act of violence, and women being bodily violated. There are people that have broken bones, broken ribs, dislocated shoulders, broken ankles. The level of violence visited upon innocent people who've committed no crime, who were eventually brought before a judge. They're that frightened of the flotilla that previously they took people from the prison to the judicial system in the courts. They wanted to get rid of us so quickly, they brought the judicial system to the prison. Before I went in to see the judge, one of the guards said to me, have you had enough? Do you want to go home? My interpretation is that every act of what I consider to be systemic, casual brutality visited upon everyone in different forms, at different times, at all hours of the day and night, was to make sure we signed a voluntary form that we wanted to be deported. This is for internal consumption within Israel. We've been told, I don't know if this is true, that the Israeli Knesset has been dissolved. I believe it's because Ben Gvir and Smotrich, somebody put out the video which shows an Irish national shouting "Free Palestine," who was then beaten. She was taken into a room and surrounded by 8 real soldiers, and felt at any moment that their retaliation would be a visit of violence upon her. He shared that. That has gone viral. The world has seen the simple brutality for simply saying "Free Palestine." And when we were on the prison ship, when people said "Free Palestine," they were shot with beanbags. People needed medical treatment. They had to be taken out. Their wounds had to be bandaged. We were told before we got off the prison ship, we had people who stepped into the breach, into the vacuum of leadership. They said, if we leave here singly, one at a time, how do we know that you are not going to beat us? And an American in full Israeli uniform with the megaphone said, so long as you don't clap, so long as you don't chant, so long as you don't shout "Free Palestine," I guarantee you there'll be no violence. Innocent people kidnapped in international waters. I can say "Free Palestine" anywhere in the free world. Germany's not free, America's not free, Britain's not free, increasingly Europe's not free. If you say from the river to the sea, in some countries you can get a prison sentence. What Israelis can say, from the river to the sea, being the greater Israeli project of freedom from the Nile
to the Euphrates. They want parts of the Sinai, all of historic Palestine, all of Jordan, parts of Iraq, all of Lebanon, and parts of Saudi Arabia. Israel was born in terrorism. It exists with terrorism. It expands through terrorism. So they can kidnap us with the full complicity of the EU, of NATO, of the North American administration, and when innocent people, we are in full compliance with maritime international law, the United Nations resolutions, and the Fourth Geneva Convention that says medical aid and food convoys must not be subjected to hold-ups, delays, or interference under international law. They took us, they put us in prison. If we said free Palestine, people were shot, people were beaten, people were attacked, people were brutalized. I'm simply going to say, under international law, Palestinians have the right to resist an illegal occupation by any means necessary. I support their right under international law to defend their communities, their families, and their home. And I support the axis of resistance as a bulwark against Zionist expansionism. Every death, every murder, yo, yo, yo! Every death, every murder, every starvation, every act of brutality, every war, every false revolutionary, cultural, whatever it's called, revolution that they brought in West Asia is because Israel exists. If you didn't have a fascist, racist, colonial, imperialist entity like Israel, not only would there be no violence, there would be no resistance. Hezbollah exists because Israel occupies Lebanon. The Palestinian resistance exists because the Zionists occupy Palestine. The other resistance groups exist because they are trying to defend their land from existential threats from an expansionist, racist, fascist, colonial state. There's no difference between National Socialism of the Nazis in the Second World War and the Zionism of the 21st century. We have gone from the master race to the chosen people, where genocide and ethnic cleansing is the order of the day.